Hello and welcome to the boat shed. Today we finish putting the materials back in the cockpit sole, and stick around for some bad news. In case you're new here, my name is John and this boat is Antidote. Now we are working on getting this old boat restored, and we've been working in the past few videos on the cockpit sole, and we are just about ready to finish that. Let's see how it's doing. The last time that you were out here, we put the core material inside the cockpit sole. We used 1-inch Kusa and we wrapped it in 3 layers of glass. Now we have this vacuum jig we've been using to locate all of the holes on the piece, and we finished the day by making this G10 plate that's going to support the pedestal base, like so. So what we want to do today is carry on now transferring this over to the permateak pieces so that we can get the relief cut in there for the proper hole. Of course, we want to be super accurate with that. So we're going to start by using the center part of this vacuum jig, which will go right inside the hole here. Locate the dowel pin to run the router, cut out our hole, and we should be good to go. So we'll start with that and see how things turn out. I think this looks pretty good, so let's go ahead and strap it down. Well, the hole has come through, and it's a little off-center Jan's marking. He's the person that made the permateak panel. But you'll remember that the original hole was actually a little bit off-centered, and so we've moved it slightly. So that probably accounts for that. I think we'll just go ahead and route it out and hope everything fits. Here we go. When we cut out the G10 piece, we went with 9 3/4 inches, and that's the outside diameter. So I actually had to set the jig to 10 1/4 to get that. Now these are the kind of things where you have to, measure twice and router once, because I had to change this now to 9 3/4 to get the right size. But then let's add 1/8 of an inch just so that we have a little bit of wiggle room. So that's a 1/16 all the way around. That's still pretty tight. And for working with the permateak, we've changed back to the standard woodworking bit. This is a 2-flute straight cutter, 1/4 inch. Let's take a second to thank some of the new Patreon and YouTube members that help keep this channel floating along. Now, if you're interested in some extra updates and ad-free videos, you can check out the Patreon link below or hit that join button. Now, the folks whose names are appearing on the screen go the extra mile to keep this channel working, and I couldn't do it without you. Thank you all so much. Now, back to the video. That fits the way we had planned. And I don't know about you, but no matter how many times you measure when you're making a cut like this, where it's very high stakes, it's always very nerve-wracking. And so if you know what I'm talking about, hit me up in the comments if you've ever measured twice and still had to cut twice. Well, let's see how we did here. Looks good. Of course, the true test. Well, I'd say that's a success. It looks pretty good. We've got even lines most of the way around. We might need to do a little bit of trimming on a few spots just to clean up those corners, but it looks really good. Happy to be moving on here. Before we can glue this G10 block down, though, we need to make sure we put in all those spacers inside those holes. For this, we are going to use these fiberglass tubes that I found online. And now these are a pull-truded sort of random strand fiberglass mixture. And I'm pretty happy with them, except that it might be hard to tell, but the holes are not exactly concentric. They're just the slightest bit off, which is frustrating. So after I cut these out on the saw, I took them over to the piece and we had to kind of just wiggle them and fit them individually to find where they would fit inside and not sort of gum up the whole mechanism. I can't really recommend these, but they are going to work really well as far as fighting the compressive forces. And is that really necessary? I had some questions in the last video. Probably not. Now, if you're using Blue Water 26, they say it's a plywood replacement, so it has the compressive strength that's quite high, similar to plywood, and so you probably don't need to worry about crushing it. But there are large loads here, so having something that's even harder and more compressive strength than plywood is still a good idea in my opinion, and that's Blue Water 20, so it's not their highest density panel. So I'm happy to use these in that application. So before we get to gluing these in though, there's a box that I think we need to open. Recently, the good folks over at TotalBoat reached out to me and said that they have a few things they wanted to send me that'll probably help with the project. And I'm really interested to see what it is that they've sent. And who doesn't love a good unboxing video? So let's go take a look. First thing here, we have some TotalBoat mixing cups, which is really nice for mixing product. But of course, I guess they didn't know I already have a cup. And so we're good to go here. This thing's probably mixed up 40 or 50 batches of epoxy. It'll probably be good to retire this one. Next up here we have, oh awesome, this is the Thixo pre-thickened epoxy. So instead of having to mix up epoxy, add silica and all that, it's already done for you. And then as you inject this through the caulking gun and through this special nozzle, it mixes the epoxy in the appropriate amount. So it dispenses right at the end, ready to go. That's gonna save a ton of time, I hope. So I'm excited to try this out. And then that comes with this special caulking gun, which has 2 tubes dispensed at the same time. So kind of a specialty gun to go with those Thixo tubes. And I think you can also get them in a standard 10-ounce caulking cartridge, which is great if you don't wanna invest in the Pro gun. Got a whole bunch of different super glues, different thicknesses and stuff. So this is their cyanacrylite or liquid stitches. Maybe you know it as that. Don't ask me how I know. Got some of their penetrating epoxy. So this might come in handy. This is supposed to be a lot thinner. It sounds like it's a lot thinner than usual epoxy. And so I'm hoping that I could maybe use this to solidify some wood that might have some damage. We'll see. We got a TotalBoat hat. It's a cool hat. I just don't wear hats. And if I put this on, you'd understand why. So let's give this one away to someone in the comments. Just leave any comment and we'll pull one at random and let you know in the next video who's taking the hat home and I'll send it to you. This looks like probably a t-shirt, TotalBoat t-shirt, and then a whole bunch more mixing cups. So now I've got enough cups to last me for 20 to 30 more years of sailboat projects, which is hopefully more time than I need. Thanks a lot, TotalBoat, for sending that stuff. Super generous of you. We'll put a link down below to their website so you can take a look at some of their stuff. They got a whole bunch of really cool products. Cool company, so go check them out. What I'd like to do now is use the Thixo to glue in these fiberglass tubes here for the pedestal. Now, the caulking gun that was sent with this kit, you know, some things just feel right. This thing has a super nice heavy-duty feeling to it. It is actually quite weighted, but it just has a really nice action. I'm excited to get to use this thing. It feels like a quality piece. Using these mixing tips is probably a bit overkill because I don't need too much of the product today. I'd usually just maybe squirt a little bit out and mix it up. And it says you can do that in the instructions, but we're gonna give this a go because it's gonna look awesome on camera and I really wanna try it. So here we go. We'll leave that now to cure for about 24 hours. So you notice that second time we mix it up by hand, and I'm just using the expended mixing tip, sort of like a cap now. And everything that came out mixed up really nicely. In fact, all of the waste from that first use also hardened up really nicely. So the cap does a great job, or the mixing tip rather, does a great job of dispensing the product, mixing it up. It doesn't sag, it has a nice consistency, it travels nicely. It's great stuff. My review on the Thixo so far is, where have you been all my life? It's really awesome stuff. In fact, I really wish I had this stuff around last week when I was making all those Kusa pucks and laying them into the cockpit sole. This would have saved me a lot of time and energy mixing epoxy. I could have just dispensed it right where I needed it, troweled it, popped those pucks in, and off you go. So I think this is gonna find a permanent spot here in the shop. In fact, I like the system so much and the gun that I've already made up a little bracket here so that we can hang this up on the wall, keep this out of the way, and it's at the ready so we can use it anytime. Maybe I'll upload this model to printables. Let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in getting one of these brackets for yourself so you could hang up your custom caulking gun. So while we wait for that to cure up, there's something else I want to show you. Unfortunately, what I have for you now is a little bit of a bad news update. This is me with Bridget out on Odyssey, and this is a 30-foot Newport that we keep with a few other couples as a way to keep the itch scratched while we're working on the large refit. So this gets us out on the water and some time to enjoy each other's company, have a drink here and there, go for a quick sail after a long day of work. So that's what we were doing here, heading out into Bellingham Bay, when I started to realize that this motor just didn't sound right. So we shut it down, and it was not long after that that it had essentially welded itself together, and there was a little bit of smoke involved. Unfortunately, it didn't get you a lot of great footage for that because I guess we're just YouTubers in progress here. We're getting better at documenting the boat project, not so great about our lives in general. I don't know exactly how the engine failed. I have a strong suspicion that the low oil pressure warning system was not functioning properly. So if nothing else, this is a great opportunity for you at home to think to yourself, does my low oil pressure system work? Make sure that buzzer is going when the key is on, the engine is not running. One way or another, this engine had a complete catastrophic failure, and we might do a bit of a teardown on that to see what went wrong after we haul it out. But that is the reason that you're seeing this old Yanmar here next to me. This is not going to go into Antidote. It's probably a little on the small side for the big boat. So never one to shy away from what some may say is a lost cause. We're going to try to resurrect this old 3GM30 motor. These were built from the early 80s to the early 2000s, so it could be anywhere from 20 to 40 years old, which is kind of crazy. We found this in Port Townsend. It was in a shed, and the owner at the time said it hasn't been run in a while, so that could be 5 or more years. Who really knows? But we were able to get it started without too much effort. Now, it didn't run great. It smoked a little bit, but it was running, and I figured, hey, you know what? We can probably get this thing working. There are still parts available for these as far as I know. The price was pretty good. Let's give it a shot. It'll be fun. So we loaded it up, threw it in the back of the truck, almost recorded that entire drive home by accident, but thankfully managed to catch that before we got on the freeway.
It's still filming.
And now here it is. So I have started it up again here at home. We ran it for a little bit when my father was here, enough to warm it up to get the oil changed, and I'm not sure if I'm going to run it much more. It started to kind of sound a little bit gnarly. So I want to do a compression check. These engines don't have glow plugs. They have these decompression levers that are supposed to aid in starting, and so I had to get an adapter to go into the injectors. The injectors will be removed one by one, and then we'll put this little adapter in to test the compression. We'll also probably do a leak down test. I think we'll even cut the old fuel filter open just to see if there's anything in there, because this thing does make a little bit of a weird click noise. So as I bar the engine over, I get a squeak at the injector, which I would expect, and then shortly after, a pretty audible click or clack coming from, I think, the injector pump area. Now, I'm not super familiar with the Yanmar engines. My research has shown me that they are kind of a loud engine. So does this sound normal to you? So the plan now is to do a little bit of digging into this motor. We're going to do some troubleshooting, try and assess the current condition of it, see if it's worth rebuilding. I'm curious to know from you in the audience if you are familiar with these engines, if you think it's worth investing some time into it, or you just think I should run right away. We will see. Frankly, it is frustrating and even a little embarrassing to report that the other motor failed. Diesels should run for a very long time. as long as they're cared for properly. So it'll be interesting to see what actually happened with this motor. Maybe we can figure that out. But yeah, it is a little embarrassing to have to tell you that. So there you go. We'll get to this in the next video, but do let me know what you think. Getting back to the cockpit sole, and this is all cured up now. The G10 looks really good. And we are ready to start putting down the panel that's going to raise this up a little bit. You might remember from a previous video that we had some custom permateak panels made for the cockpit area of the boat, including the cockpit sole. But because these original pockets are a little bit deep, we have to add some thickness to bring that up. So instead of just laying many layers of fiberglass, which would make it very strong but add a ton of weight, we're going to add some very dense foam. This is H130 Divinycell foam. This is going to go down with some epoxy, and we'll put a layer of 17808 over this, and hopefully that will provide enough thickness and still enough impact resistance with the permateak on top and everything in there. I think it's still going to work pretty well, so let's get going on that now. Well, very sorry about the camera trouble there. This looks like it's ready to be removed now. And I did have some of the epoxy come up around the edges. I probably invited that problem because I put a lot of thickened epoxy right to the edge of the piece. Let's open it up and see how it looks. The main goal here was to get a flat layer of glass for the permateak to fit into, and I think that looks pretty good. Now we'll test fit it in a second. Looks like we have a little bit of squeezed out around some of the edges, but not bad. We'll clean that up with the sander. Should be good to go. This looks really good. Got a nice level here. It feels solid, and there is just a slight crown in it, so we're not going to get water pooling. That's going to be really good. Later I'll do a little bit of cleanup on this, but for now we want to take a look at the bottom again. I've taken the liberty to clean this up with the sander, get all of that extra little squeeze out off around the edges of epoxy, and it looks really good. I'm happy with this. And some of you might have noticed that we went ahead and put the original G10 plate down that I cut out at the end of last episode, even though I had asked if maybe I should have made it a little bit bigger. And if I was starting over again, I probably would do that, but I think this is going to be plenty stiff and strong. And as some of you pointed out in the comments, adding a large backing plate on the bottom would help to distribute the loads and spread that out a bit. And I think that's a great idea. So that's probably what we'll do. And we're going to actually just glass that right to the bottom. So it'll be integrated into the glasswork, a little bit of a thicker section right under here to help spread out the loads. Let me put this together and show you what I mean. Well, this gives you an idea of how it's all going to go together. So this is that bar here. And so someone could be, falling back into the companionway and grabbing onto that. So I do want there to be a lot of strength transmitted down there as well. And these are the bottom feet that we removed from the original bar and get mounted like so. So we'll just want to provide a little bit of extra meat under those as well. I may decide to put in a larger bar, and it would maybe be up to 1.25 inches. So this is a base plate for something like that. So that is substantially larger. So I think we'll size the backing plates under here for something in this size range in case we decide to do that. Better to be safe than sorry. Everything's cured up really well here. You might notice there's quite a bit of extra epoxy sort of on top of the peel ply. The reason for that is the last layer of 090 glass, the 1808, has a pretty open structure to it. It's got a lot of gaps between the different bundles of glass. And so I wanted to make sure it was fully saturated, there wouldn't be any voids in there. And I think that's probably worked, but we're not going to know until we open up and see. Quick tip here, it almost always makes sense to use a much larger piece of peel ply than you really need. I tend to like to cut them roughly to size, and that's almost always a mistake because I get squish out that goes under them inevitably like we have here, and I get on the ends of the material, the fibers like to get stuck. And then you have to remove those because nothing is going to bond to them. So just use a bigger piece, it's really cheap stuff. Learn from my mistake. Otherwise, it feels and looks good. There aren't any voids like I was talking about. We'll drill the holes back through now. We'll clean this up. I'll do a little light scuff sanding to get rid of all that extra mess that I just talked about. We should be good to go. And we'll finish things off here with a little bit of the cloth tape around the edges. Cool. One of the viewers recommended opening up the tolerances on these bolt holes just a little bit, so we're going to add 1/32. So it's going to wiggle just a tiny bit when it's in there, but it's going to make this a lot easier to bolt up and make sure that those bolts don't bind. I think it's a good idea. Overall, this looks pretty good. It's definitely not perfect. There are a couple of very small air bubbles here and there, but overall, just fine. So we'll trim up the edges, get this primed and ready for some fairing compound so we can get this all ready to go back into the boat. Huge thanks to TotalBoat for sending over that Thixo, and make sure you leave a comment if you want to get that hat sent your way. So if you're new to the channel and you'd like to get caught up from the very start, there's a playlist for you over here, and you can subscribe to the channel by hitting that button. See you next time. Hello and welcome to the boat show. What? A few weeks ago, the good people over at We've decided to just stay with this one for now. For now, probably forever. The good people over at TotalBoat reached out to me. Just kidding, it's TotalBoat, but you already knew that.